Published in 2019, The Nickel Boys by Colson. Whitehead is a powerful and harrowing novel based on the true story of the Dozier School for Boys in Florida, a reform school that operated for over a century and became notorious for the abuse and deaths of many of its black students. Through this fictionalized account, Whitehead constructs a searing narrative about racism, institutional violence, moral idealism, and the long shadow of America's racist legacy. The novel focuses on Elwood Curtis, a principled African-American teenager in 1960s Florida who is unjustly sent to a juvenile reformatory called the Nickel Academy. His experiences at Nickel, and the contrasting philosophies he and his friend Turner adopt to survive, form the emotional and moral core of the book. Elwood Curtis, the idealist. Elwood is a bright, rule-abiding black teenager raised by his grandmother Harriet in Tallahassee, Florida. He is deeply influenced by the civil rights movement, particularly the speeches of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., which he listens to on a record over and over. Elwood believes in justice, nonviolence, and moral responsibility. A gifted student, Elwood attends a segregated school and works in a local hotel. He is offered a chance to take college-level classes at a nearby black college, but on his first day, he hitchhikes and is arrested for riding in a stolen car, though he had no idea the vehicle was stolen. This unjust arrest lands him in Nickel Academy, a reform school that, on the surface, claims to turn bad boys into good citizens, but in reality is a brutal institution that systemically abuses its black students. Life at Nickel Academy. The Nickel Academy is divided into the White House, where beatings take place, the dormitories, and the outbuildings used for farming and labor. Black and white boys are strictly segregated, with black boys receiving harsher punishment, fewer resources, and more dangerous work assignments. Elwood quickly learns that Nickel is governed by cruelty, hypocrisy, and corruption. Beatings are administered with a leather strap euphemistically called the paddle, and boys who resist or step out of line are sent to the White House, often returning with open wounds, or disappearing altogether. Corruption is widespread. Supplies meant for students are stolen by staff, food is spoiled or meager, and medical care is either inadequate or used as a form of punishment. Turner, the cynic. At Nickel, Elwood meets Jack Turner, a more cynical and pragmatic boy who sees the world as inherently unjust and dangerous. Turner believes survival requires deception, detachment, and submission. Though skeptical of Elwood's moral idealism, Turner grows to respect him. Their friendship becomes a moral dialogue. Elwood believes in speaking out and doing right, even when no one is watching. Turner believes in keeping your head down and staying alive. This dynamic plays out in scenes where Elwood writes letters to government authorities detailing abuses at the school, while Turner warns him that doing so will bring nothing but pain. The beating at the White House. After Elwood intervenes to stop another boy from being bullied, he is sent to the White House as punishment. There, he is beaten so severely that he passes out and awakens days later in the school's infirmary. The beating marks a turning point. Though Elwood continues to believe in justice, the incident teaches him that righteousness has consequences in a world governed by injustice. Nevertheless, Elwood continues documenting the abuse and writing to outside authorities. He keeps a record of corruption and brutality, hiding the documents in a box, convinced that truth will eventually bring reform. The escape and the twist. Fearing for Elwood's life, Turner convinces him that escape is the only option. During the escape attempt, they are chased by guards. Elwood is captured and killed, but in a twist, the reader learns that the Elwood narrating part of the novel is actually Turner, who assumed Elwood's name and identity after his death. Turner, racked by guilt and shaped by Elwood's example, leaves Nickel and eventually builds a life under Elwood's name. He becomes a successful business owner in New York, haunted by trauma but striving to live by the principles Elwood believed in. The modern-day excavation. Interwoven with the main narrative is a contemporary thread. In present-day Florida, bodies are being exhumed from the grounds of the former Nickel Academy, now shut down. The discovery mirrors the real-life investigations into the Dozier School for Boys, which uncovered dozens of unmarked graves. The present-day Turner, as Elwood, watches these events unfold, his past coming back to confront him. The unearthing of these bodies, literal and symbolic, forces him to reckon with memory, grief, and legacy. Character analysis. Elwood Curtis. Elwood represents the moral conscience of the novel. He is idealistic, principled, and inspired by civil rights leaders. His sense of justice is rooted in faith in humanity, despite overwhelming evidence to the contrary. His tragic death underscores the novel's argument that goodness does not always survive in an unjust system. Yet Elwood's impact endures. Turner's transformation and the novel's conclusion show that his ideals live on, even if he could not. Jack Turner. Turner begins as a hardened realist, disillusioned and skeptical of virtue. But his friendship with Elwood changes him. After Elwood's death, Turner adopts his identity, values, and even his name, suggesting a symbolic rebirth. Turner's survival comes at the cost of his identity, but it also offers him a chance to embody Elwood's vision of dignity and integrity, even if only partially. Harriet. Elwood's grandmother is a steadying presence in his life. She instills in him a love of reading and discipline, and her death, while Elwood is imprisoned, further underscores the injustice of his fate. Staff and abusers at Nickel. Characters like Maynard Spencer and Mr. Hill represent the institution's corruption. They are cruel, indifferent, or complicit in abuse. The staff's systematic theft and violence show how institutionalized racism and corruption thrive in closed systems where accountability is absent. Themes and analysis. 1. Racism and institutional injustice. At its core, The Nickel Boys is a condemnation of systemic racism, particularly how institutions, reform schools, the justice system, the state, are used to discipline, control, and destroy black lives. Nickel is a microcosm of American society, built on inequality, sanitized by euphemism, and shielded from scrutiny. The school exists not to reform boys, but to punish and exploit them. Black boys like Elwood are disposable, while white students often receive better treatment. 2. Idealism versus pragmatism. Elwood and Turner represent contrasting responses to oppression. Elwood believes in moral action, inspired by Dr. King's teachings. Throw us in jail, and we will still love you. Turner sees this as naive and dangerous. For him, survival is paramount, and ideals are luxuries. Whitehead does not offer easy answers. Elwood dies for his beliefs. Turner survives by abandoning his. Yet Turner later adopts Elwood's values, suggesting that idealism, while costly, can inspire transformation. 3. The corrupting power of institutions. The novel explores how unchecked institutions breed abuse. Nickel exists for over a century, insulated by lies and protected by society's indifference. Its cruelty is systemic, not accidental. This critique extends beyond the school. It implicates judges, police, politicians, and society at large. Whitehead shows how institutions built to control black bodies persist under the guise of reform or progress. 4. Memory, trauma, and legacy. The exhumation of bodies at Nickel mirrors the act of unearthing buried history. Turner, posing as Elwood, has spent his life suppressing his trauma. The novel argues that healing requires confronting the past, no matter how painful. Memory in the novel is both a burden and a duty. Turner survives but is haunted. His story shows that truth may not always bring peace, but forgetting guarantees repetition. 5. Names and identity. Turner's assumption of Elwood's name after his death is deeply symbolic. It signifies rebirth, homage, and moral aspiration. It also raises questions about identity. What does it mean to live as someone else? Can one inherit another's values and mission? Whitehead uses this device to explore the possibility of moral resurrection. Turner cannot undo the past, but he can choose to honor it. Style and structure. Whitehead's prose in The Nickel Boys is elegant, restrained, and devastatingly precise. He avoids melodrama, instead using understatement to amplify emotional impact. The novel's tight, linear narrative is occasionally interrupted by the present-day investigation and introspective passages. The novel's twist, revealing that Elwood died and Turner took his name, recasts the story, giving it retrospective poignancy and moral depth. It forces readers to re-evaluate earlier passages and invites reflection on truth, identity, and memory. Historical context. The Nickel Academy is based on the Arthur G. Dozier School for Boys, which operated from 1900 to 2011. In 2012, forensic investigations discovered dozens of unmarked graves, triggering national outrage. Survivors testified about abuse, sexual assault, and murder. By fictionalizing this history, Whitehead preserves its emotional truth while crafting a narrative that speaks to broader patterns of racial injustice in America. Conclusion. The Nickel Boys is a searing indictment of America's history of racial violence and institutional corruption, told through a deeply personal and morally resonant narrative. Colson Whitehead combines historical realism, literary restraint, and moral urgency to craft a novel that is both heartbreaking and illuminating. Through Elwood and Turner, the novel examines how people respond to evil, by resisting it, surviving it, or memorializing it. In the end, Whitehead suggests that truth and remembrance are essential steps toward justice, even when justice is delayed or denied. In The Nickel Boys, the past is never past. It lingers in unmarked graves, silent traumas, and inherited identities. But through storytelling, painful, truthful, and unflinching, Whitehead reclaims that history and gives voice to the voiceless.